We was selling drugs. We was robbing and like that, you know what I'm saying?
Allegedly attacked two fans with a baseball bat. Christopher Wallace was outside a nightclub in New York when two men asked for an autograph. Wallace refused and there was an argument. The autograph seekers tried to flee in a cab, but Wallace gave chase.
Ask anyone about Biggie and they'll swear he's the greatest rapper to ever hold a mic. The king of New York himself, a legend carved in hip-hop history. But behind that larger-than-life image was a man with a wild, dangerous edge. Biggie wasn't just rhyming about the streets, he was the streets. Drugs, fights, stick-ups, and a record that kept growing. He was deep in that life before fame ever came knocking. When Biggie's father walked out, his mom, Voletta Wallace, refused to let her son fall through the cracks. She juggled two jobs, teaching preschool by day and subbing whenever she could, just to make sure her boy never went without. That woman was determined. Voletta wanted structure for her son, not chaos. So she sent Biggie to private Catholic schools, hoping the classroom would keep him away from the madness outside their Brooklyn window. And for a while, it actually worked. Biggie was smart, quick with jokes, sharper with words, and confident enough to light up any room. Teachers saw his potential. He even brought home awards. But no matter how hard his mom tried, the pull of those Brooklyn streets was too strong, and soon enough, they started calling his name loud. By the late 80s, Brooklyn was drowning in the crack epidemic. It was everywhere, on every corner, in every alley. For a teen coming up in Bed-Stuy, temptation wasn't just around, it was life. It was nearly impossible not to get pulled into it. Voletta Wallace would later admit she had no clue what her son was really up to back then. She once said, "I found out about my son and his little antics through his music and through magazines." Another time, she confessed, "I read this thing and said, I never knew." That's how secretive Biggie's early hustle really was. Biggie's grind on the street started way earlier than most people think. At just 12 years old,
It's the thing that a lot of people have to get into, but, you know, unfortunately, luckily you are out of it now, but like drug dealing.
Yeah, you know.
I mean,
Part of the
slinging
game.
on corn.
he was out on Fulton Street with his close friend Roland Ole Young, selling crack like they were grown men. They kept it quiet, moved smart, and stacked their cash. These kids were making over $2,000 a week. That was wild money for teenagers back then. But with that kind of fast paper came big risks, and they both knew it. Ole tried to steer Big toward the studio, always telling him, "Man, you got too much talent to waste out here." But at 13, Big wasn't hearing that. Not yet. The streets had him hooked. By 1989, at just 17, Biggie caught his first major charge, felony weapons possession. 5 years probation should have been a reality check, but not for him. Instead, it just became another story in his legend. The game was too deep, the money too sweet, and Biggie, he wasn't ready to let go just yet. Just a year later, in 1990, Biggie got locked up again, this time for violating the same probation he'd already been riding on. Still, it didn't shake him one bit. By then, hustling wasn't just something he did, it was who he was. By 1991, Biggie started thinking way bigger.
91, this was before Big got signed, okay? Big was still selling crack.
Yes.
And at one point, he goes to North Carolina.
Yes.
Brooklyn money wasn't enough anymore. He wanted that out-of-town cash, so he took his game down south to Raleigh, North Carolina, where crack prices were through the roof. He was running product between Brooklyn and Raleigh, flipping it for almost 4 times the profit. That's serious hustle. But every level comes with new dangers, and eventually, the streets caught up to him again. This time, he got hit with heavy drug charges and spent 9 months behind bars. That could have been the end of his story, but instead it flipped everything around. During that jail stretch, Biggie crossed paths with DJ Mr. C and DJ 50 Grand. Two people who didn't just see another street hustler, they saw a star in the making. They could tell there was something rare in him. That voice, that wordplay, that hunger. When Big finally got out, 50 Grand pushed him to hit the booth and record a demo. They named it Microphone Murderer, and man, it was straight fire. Raw, grimy, pure Brooklyn energy pouring through the speakers. The tape ended up in the hands of Sean Puffy Combs over at Uptown Records, and once Puffy heard it, there was no turning back. He had to sign him. What made that whole moment so wild was that Biggie was still deep in the streets while his music career was blowing up. He was still moving products, still fighting a drug case, living a double life with one foot in the game and the other in the studio. The timing was crazy. Chaos and success were crashing together at full speed. By the summer of 1995, Biggie had turned into a superstar. His debut, Ready to Die, had lifted him straight from the corners of Fulton Street to the very top of the rap world. He was headlining sold-out shows.
I did, you know what I'm saying? If I had a McDonald's job, most of the songs would have been about Big Macs and fries and, you know, stuff like that. I hustled. That's what my game was, so that's what I was rapping about.
Stacking serious money and living larger than ever. But with all that fame, Big still had that short temper, the kind that could spark trouble in seconds. And that fire would soon drag him into one of the wildest legal messes of his career. It all kicked off with a show planned in Camden, New Jersey. Biggie was booked to perform. Everything was set. But out of nowhere, the concert promoter pulled the plug. Maybe the ticket sales were weak. Maybe the money got funny. No one knows for sure. What's clear is that the promoter canceled the whole thing and refused to pay Big his full fee. For Big, that wasn't just business, that was straight up disrespect. So when he ran into that promoter again later, things turned ugly fast. Big pressed him about the canceled gig, demanding his money right there on the spot. The promoter tried to explain himself, but Big wasn't trying to hear it. Voices rose, tempers flared, and the argument started to boil over. The shouting turned into chaos.
Eliminated all the bull, all the drugs, all the street, all the extra. That's out of my life now. It's strictly business and entertainment.
And before anyone could step in, fists started flying. Biggie swung first and hit the promoter hard, so the man's jaw snapped on impact. But it didn't stop there. While the promoter was down, Biggie snatched his stuff, his jewelry, his pager, and even his mobile phone. Back then, a cell phone was a serious flex, worth close to $1,000. This wasn't just a heated fight anymore. It was officially a robbery. The cops and prosecutors didn't see it as some random scuffle either. They went full force with it. They charged Big with robbery and aggravated assault, calling it a violent crime. Because he used physical force to take the man's belongings, rumors started flying that it might have been an armed robbery, though there was never any proof of a weapon. The truth was, his fists had done all the damage. And to make things worse, Big didn't even lay low afterward. He kept performing like nothing happened.
We had like a little organization in elementary school, the Hawks. We used to actually have a person that kept the money, a person that dealt with arms. We didn't have guns or nothing, but it was just, you know, it was set up in a certain way, and Big set this whole thing.
The man really hit the stage as if he hadn't just broken somebody's jaw hours earlier. It wasn't long before word got out and a warrant was issued for his arrest. Eventually, authorities caught up to him in Pennsylvania after a show in Glen Mills, shutting his run down fast. In the end, the criminal case didn't completely stick. But that wild night left another deep mark on Biggie's growing legend, showing the world that fame hadn't pulled him all the way out of the streets just yet. The robbery charges didn't hold up in the end. They got tossed out. But the promoter wasn't about to let it slide that easy. He came for Biggie in civil court, and by January 1997, just 2 months before Big's tragic death, a judge hit him with a ruling to pay $41,000 in damages. People close to Big tried to spin it, saying the promoter was shady and had played him dirty on the deal, that he'd scammed Big out of his rightful money. Maybe that was true, maybe not. But even if Big had a legit reason to be heated, the way he handled it, raw, violent, and impulsive, showed that side of him that couldn't let any disrespect slide. That same fire that made him fearless in the booth sometimes burned too hot in real life. What's wild is that all the official documents from that case, the fingerprints, arrest reports, and even the settlement papers are now treated like collector's gold. Some have been sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's how deep Biggie's legend runs. Even his legal trouble became part of hip-hop history. By early 1996, Biggie was sitting on top of the rap world. He had just been crowned Rapper of the Year, and his hit One More Chance was tearing up the charts, debuting right alongside Michael and Janet Jackson's Scream. He was rolling with Bad Boy, living large, and finally tasting the success he used to dream about during those cold Brooklyn nights.
He was a gambler. And he would gamble with friends, family, whatever. Put your money down. You want to come out? Let's go. Big will go get a room somewhere.
But fame couldn't change everything. Big still carried that Bed-Stuy edge wherever he went. The streets were in him too deep to fade away. And one wild night at the Palladium in Manhattan proved it loud and clear. It was the early hours of March 23rd, 1996. The club was still buzzing from a show that had just wrapped, and Biggie's night was about to take another explosive turn. Faith Evans, Biggie's wife at the time, had just wrapped up her performance at the Palladium when all chaos broke loose. Biggie was outside the club, cooling with his crew and his right-hand man, D-Rock Butler, just vibing after the show. Then, out of nowhere, Two young fans walked up just hoping for an autograph. Nothing wild, just love for the music. But the vibe flipped fast. Something shifted in the air. A few words got tossed around, tempers rose, and suddenly it wasn't about autographs anymore. The fans, realizing things were about to go left, jumped into a taxi trying to get out of there quick. But Big wasn't letting it slide. Not that night. He and D-Rock jumped in their own car and started tailing the taxi through the Manhattan streets. When the cab stopped at a red light near Union Square, Biggie hopped out with a baseball bat in hand, and he was furious. Without hesitation, he went straight for the taxi, swinging with full force and smashing the windows one after another. Glass shattered everywhere. It looked like a car wreck by the time he was done. Witnesses said the scene was pure madness. Biggie wasn't just breaking glass. He was yelling, losing it, even shouting threats toward the two men inside.
She waking up to go to work in the morning. I'm still on the corner, still trying to finish my little bit of drugs. She felt like she failed.
D-Rock stood by him, and one of the guys in the cab ended up getting punched during the chaos. It was a brutal, wild moment. Fast, reckless, and shocking to everyone who saw it. Nobody could believe that the man behind the #1 rap album in the country was out there in the middle of Manhattan swinging a bat in the street. When the cops showed up, there was no mystery to figure out. Everything was out in the open. Biggie and D-Rock got arrested right there on the spot, hit with charges for assault, possession of a weapon, and criminal mischief. Considering how wild that scene had been, things could have gone really bad for Big legally. But somehow, he walked away with just 100 hours of community service. No jail time, no probation, no huge fines, just a slap on the wrist for a full-blown baseball bat attack in public. That's wild. But peace never lasted long around Big. Only a few months after that chaotic Palladium incident, he was in trouble again, this time at home in Teaneck, New Jersey. It all started with an anonymous call to the cops. Somebody claimed there was suspicious activity going down at Biggie's house, and that one tip set everything off. When police rolled up, they said they could smell weed drifting from inside the place, and that was all they needed to go get a search warrant. Before Big even knew what was happening, officers were knocking at his door, papers in hand, ready to tear through the house. What they found inside stunned everyone.
91, this was before Big got signed, okay? Big was still selling crack.
Yes.
And at one point, he goes to North Carolina.
Yes.
And he gets caught.
This wasn't some small stash and a little smoke session. It looked like a mini armory. Cops uncovered several automatic weapons, including a rifle with the serial number scratched clean off.
He gets out from doing the 9 months. He puts together a demo.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. C gets a hold of that demo.
Yeah.
Puffy sees the article, gets a hold of the tape, and then signs Biggie to Uptown Records.
Which alone is a federal offense. On top of that, they found around 50 grams of weed and a group of people hanging out inside, most of them from Biggie's own inner circle. The scene painted a wild picture. The biggest rapper in the world, fresh off platinum records, caught up in something straight out of a street raid. Even with all his fame, Biggie still couldn't escape the pull of that life he came from. And once again, the streets were right there knocking at his door. Lil Cease, Biggie's right-hand man and junior MAFIA protege, was in the house that day too. And he didn't walk away clean either. Cops hit him with charges right alongside Big. The whole situation had people asking serious questions. How did one of the biggest rappers in the world, living in a quiet New Jersey suburb, end up surrounded by automatic weapons with scratched off serial numbers? That didn't scream self-defense. It looked organized, almost like Big was running his own private street-style security team. But those close to him swore it wasn't about flexing or pretending to be gangster. They said Biggie was scared. After Tupac got shot and the East Coast-West Coast beef started getting deadly, shot through the roof, he knew he had enemies out there, people who wanted him gone for good. The fear was real, but the way he handled it made everything worse. And the trouble didn't stop there. That same year, Big found himself in hot water again, this time back in Brooklyn. Another anonymous tip came through to the police, saying Biggie was sitting in his car, smoking weed out in the open. Cops rolled up to check it out, and sure enough, there he was, chilling in his luxury ride, in a way like he didn't have a care in the world. Lil Cease was right there with him again, along with another friend named Lamont Mosley. What was supposed to be a laid-back moment turned into yet another run-in with the law. No matter how high Biggie climbed, that street life just wouldn't stop circling back to him, like it refused to let go. When the cops searched Biggie's car, they didn't find much, just a little marijuana. But even that small amount was enough to get Big Lil Cease and Lamont Mosley slapped with possession charges. What made it all feel eerie was the timing.
Yo, check it out. I want to give a shout out to my borough. Brooklyn is up in here, representing.
This arrest went down just 2 days after Tupac's death in Las Vegas. Tupac had been shot in a drive-by on September 7, 1996, and the entire hip-hop world was in shock. Emotions were running wild, grief, anger, confusion, and then suddenly, Biggie gets arrested. It felt strange, almost symbolic, like the universe was setting up another tragic chapter. With conspiracy theories already flying about who was behind Pac's murder, Biggie's name kept popping up, whether fair or not. Even though this was just a small weed bust, the headlines made it bigger. He got released soon after, but the damage was done. The timing alone poured more gasoline on the fire, pushing the East Coast-West Coast drama to a boiling point and putting Biggie right back in the middle of the chaos. What truly separated Biggie from most rappers who came after him wasn't just his flow or punchlines. It was his raw honesty. He didn't just rhyme about the streets like some outside storyteller. He lived it, breathed it, and then laid it bare in his lyrics like a confession on wax. His debut album, Ready to Die, dropped on September 13, 1994. The exact same day President Bill Clinton signed the 1994 crime bill into law. That law would go on to devastate poor black neighborhoods across America. The timing was almost poetic. While the government was cracking down on the streets, Biggie was opening his heart about what those same streets had made him into. On Gimme the Loot, Biggie didn't hold anything back. He took it straight back to his teenage years, when he was out in the streets, running wild with his crew and hitting licks just to survive. He rapped about pulling stick-ups, flashing guns, and splitting up the cash after robberies, all with that bold, street-smart confidence that made people believe every word.
The singer, whose real name is Christopher Wallace, was outside a nightclub in New York when two men asked for an autograph. Wallace refused, and there was an argument. The autograph seekers tried to flee in a cab, but Wallace gave.
One of his boys even took the fall for him on a gun charge, hiding the weapons and doing the time while Big kept moving. Big later mentioned that same friend was supposed to get out around 93, a detail that showed how real those stories truly were. Then came Machine Gun Funk, where he switched up the vibe but kept that raw intensity. This time, he gave us the crack side, the paranoia, the danger, the constant hustle. He painted vivid pictures of the dope game, serving fiends, dodging cops, and staying high just to push through the madness. It wasn't glamorized, it was survival told in HD detail. On Warning, Biggie went full storyteller, cinematic level. The track plays out like a movie scene. It starts with a chilling phone call, someone tipping him off about a crew plotting to rob him. You can feel the tension as he calmly says, "Who the F is this paging me at 5:46 in the morning?" From there, he's loading up, planning for a shootout. Every line plays out like a thriller you can see in your mind. But one of the deepest moments on the album came with Things Done Changed. Here, Biggie slowed it down and reflected on the world that shaped him, the struggle, the desperation, and the hard choices.
Guns on us. You know, we used to have like all type of pocket knives and gadgets and, you know, all type of shit.
When he dropped the line, "If I wasn't in the rap game, I'd probably have a key, knee deep in the crack game. Either you're slinging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot." It hit hard because it was real. Those words captured what Brooklyn felt like in the 80s and early 90s. A time when survival meant picking between the corner or the court. Biggie wasn't just telling stories. He was documenting a whole generation's reality. For young black men in that era, the options were barely there. The system wasn't built to lift them up, it boxed them in. With doors closed everywhere else, the streets became the only employer that actually paid. And Biggie captured that truth perfectly on the final track of his album, Suicidal Thoughts. That song wasn't just dark, it was haunting. The whole track plays out like a phone call between Biggie and Puffy, where Big finally breaks down, confessing the weight of everything he'd done. You can hear the pain, the guilt, the exhaustion. He admits he's done too much dirt to ever find peace. Crime after crime, from hustling drugs to street extortion. Then he drops that gut punch of a line. "I know my mother wished she got a effing abortion. I wonder if I died, would tears come to her eyes?" That line still hits hard today. Raw, shocking, and painfully human.
Plagued rapper and actor Tupac Shakur is dead at the age of 25, just about a week after sustaining 4 bullet wounds last Saturday night in Las Vegas.
But beyond the music, one thing that stands out about Biggie's criminal record was how the system treated him, almost like it played by a different set of rules. Despite multiple serious charges, assaults, drug busts, weapons cases, He somehow kept slipping through the cracks. That 100-hour community service sentence for smashing a taxi with a baseball bat? Anyone else would have done serious time for that. Biggie had something most didn't: money, lawyers, and industry power. Every time he got locked up, he made bail, walked out, and went straight back to the studio. It was like the law couldn't touch him, at least not for long. But while his freedom kept him recording hits, it also let him keep one foot in the danger that had followed him his whole life. The same danger that would eventually catch up with him for good. The same system that crushed thousands of young black men for minor charges somehow looked the other way when it came to Biggie. Even with open cases hanging over him, his career never slowed down, not for a second. He was still winning awards, still getting Grammy nominations, still being praised as the King of New York. The record labels didn't distance themselves, they embraced the chaos. His street history, instead of being a liability, became a core part of his legend.
You know what I'm saying? If I had a McDonald's job, most of the songs would have been about Big Macs and fries and, you know, stuff like that. I hustled. That's what my game was, so that's what I was rapping about.
After his death in 1997, that darker side of his story started to fade away. Biggie stopped being remembered as a man who lived a violent, conflicted life and became something larger, a symbol, a martyr, frozen in time at just 24 years old, at the very peak of his game. The world kept talking about his murder, his feud with Tupac, and his music that changed rap forever, but rarely about the crimes, the chaos, and the contradictions that built his empire. Unlike Tupac, whose rap sheet became part of his myth, Biggie's criminal past got buried under the glow of his greatness, swallowed up by his legacy. He became immortalized, not as the hustler who made it out, but as the artist who turned pain into poetry, struggle into sound, and chaos into culture. Biggie Smalls didn't just make hits, he became history. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Let's keep the conversation alive.